Welcome back to the show. Today we have Spencer Fry. He's the founder and CEO at Podia. Spencer, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show again. You did the radio version of the show, and I think we should have you back because I think what you guys are doing at Podia is actually really interesting and kind of innovative. And you've had a really innovative kind of journey. But maybe before we kind of get into all that fun stuff, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Sure. So I grew up in New Haven, Connecticut, home to Yale University,
Sure.
and I ended up actually staying locally. So I actually went to school there as well. But that was a while ago. So I'm 34 years old now.
Sure.
So
Okay.
been a few years.
No, that's cool, man. So what did you take at Yale and why?
So I actually started off as a computer science, in computer science, as that was my major.
Sure.
And then after sophomore year, I switched to psychology. So basically, I started a business called TypeFrag in my sophomore year, and I wasn't really able to balance both the CS degree requirements and also running this startup. So I did what any entrepreneur would do and focused on the startup.
Well, and you did that at kind of a time where I think it was it's way more popular now to kind of drop out of a university and go for it. But I think you also did it at a time where maybe it wasn't like frowned upon, but it wasn't as common as it kind of is now today.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't drop out in that I still got my degree.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Fair.
Changed the level of the sort of the demand.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So walk me through kind of how Carbonmade came to be and why did you kind of move from TypeFrag to that?
Sure. So I've been running TypeFrag for about 4 years and sold the business and started working with these two guys out of Chicago. So they both had a design and development agency.
Okay.
And I joined as a 1/3 partner. And we had a bunch of client work that we were doing, but also we started developing Carbonmade on the side. And then within about a year, we were starting to do about $12,000 a month in recurring revenue. And we just decided that's enough for that's enough for the three of us to live on 4K a month. And we're just going to kind of go all in on Carbonmade. And then the company started to really kind of grow. And we were the first online portfolio for artists and designers to go to display their work online. So we started to do really well in like Google, and we were the first search result for online portfolio and free online portfolio, and that did really well for us. And then the 2008 financial crisis hit, and a bunch of artists and designers were out of work, and they all needed portfolios. So they sort of Googled it and found us, and the rest is history.
No, I think that's great, and that's I think you've done a ton of really cool kind of innovative stuff in that space. So you moved on from Carbonmade. You did another startup before Podia. Do you want to maybe kind of walk us through that quickly?
Yeah, sure. So I started another company about 4 years later called Uncover, and it was basically a B2B SaaS business for kind of handling some of the HR stuff. So payroll, benefits, perks, that sort of thing.
Sure.
But within the first, I want to say 2 years, but really it's probably like 3 months. I just realized that B2B was not for me. I didn't like all the red tape of having to go to sell into an HR department, talk to 5 people, them all promise me that, yeah, we're gonna use you guys, and then 3 months later they're like, yeah, we're not gonna do it. Whereas with the talking to directly to your customers in the B2C world, literally you have to talk to this person for 30 minutes. They can make all the financial decision, they can make the entire decision, and now you've got a new customer. And just that sort of quick cycle kind of gets my adrenaline going, and it's just like a lot more how I like to do things.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So what exactly is Podia, and why did you decide to found it?
Sure. So Podia is a digital storefront to be able to sell courses, digital downloads, and memberships. And we also do email marketing. So I come from an educational background where both my parents were professors. And so I've been around education for a long time. And my father was actually one of the first to do online courses. So he is part of this program at Yale called Open Yale. And his online course for his English class has been seen by like millions of people.
Wow.
So I kind of got a really early insight into the value of online courses, and that, he's a Yale professor who teaches mainly Yale, well, only Yale people, but through this course, he's got people in China and India and everything being able to take it. And I just found that to be super powerful. So with Podia, I started with this idea that I wanted to build a digital storefront for creators to be able to sell content and monetize their audiences. And we started with courses. So that was sort of the natural progression that we started with courses and then we went into downloads. So about a year ago, we launched downloads as just another way for creators to make money. And then about 6 months ago in December 2017, we launched memberships as sort of the final piece to the puzzle.
Very cool. No, I think it's interesting because at least until kind of you did Podia, you had to basically have 3, 4, 5, maybe more than that. Not only was that a lot more money than what you'd pay for Podia, and we'll get into that in a second, but just the user experience of somebody going to your main site and then trying to buy something and they go off here and then they want something else and they go here or there, and then sending email even just that is another thing, and just having to maintain, multiple services is kind of a nightmare.
Yeah, it's so fragmented. So when we started, I looked at the sort of the landscape of all the ways you could sell content, and there was a product for courses, there was a product for downloads, there was a product for memberships, there was a product for email, but all these creators that I spoke to, and I've spoken now to probably honestly 5,000, 6,000, something like that, something ridiculous. All of these creators were, say, starting with courses and they were starting to add downloads, and instead of being able to sell downloads on the course platform, they'd have to sign up for another service, or maybe they had courses and downloads and now they want to create a membership and they have to go sign up for another product, and none of it worked together. And that your customer would have to create a new account, they'd have to enter their payment information another time. You couldn't manage all your customers in one place. It was just a nightmare from a logistics point of view, but it's also you're going to see a much higher conversion rate if you have everyone all in one place, because then if you launch something new, it's really easy for me already as a customer of yours to say, oh, that's cool, I want that, and be able to buy it directly.
Sure. And just the cross promotion of that stuff instead of
cross selling is huge.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. So what exactly, because you have a couple pricing plans, what exactly are they and how much are they, and what's the difference?
Sure. So we have, we try to keep it really simple. So we have 2 plans. We have the Mover, which is $39 a month, and we have the Shaker, which is $79 a month. And with Mover, you get courses, you get downloads, you get email marketing. We take no transaction fees at all on either plan. So you get to keep all the money you make. And then the only difference with Shaker really is that you get memberships as well. So the way that we look at it is we sort of split it across 2 personas. So most people that are starting to monetize their audience, they're either just starting out, or they've been doing it for a long time. So we sort of segment it based on movers for people that are just starting out, maybe just wanting to create their first download or just wanting to create their first course. And Shaker is more that person who's a little bit more experienced, has already a course, has a download, maybe wants to create a membership. So it makes it really easy for you to kind of find the right plan that fits for you.
No, I think that's really great. And you touched on something that I really want to kind of reiterate is you don't charge per transaction, because I think some of they're not really competitors, but people that offer kind of one of the verticals that you guys offer, they charge per transaction, and that gets really expensive, especially if you're selling a ton of content.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because it's not that they just charge transaction fees; they actually charge a monthly fee and a transaction fee.
Right. Okay, fair enough.
They're sort of like double dipping. And when we started the company, or when I started the company, one of the things I want to do is make it very creator friendly and really put the creator first. And it just felt really strange to me that I should get commission for the hard work you've done to market your course and market your download. Convince someone of a sale and then take 10% away from you. So when I started Podia, I was like, we're never going to do that. And we've actually had content creators and we've had a ton of people move to our system that were we got this one guy actually who moved recently who did about $200,000 last year.
Wow.
And he ate $20,000 worth of transaction fees. And now at Podia, he pays $79 a month and gets to literally keep $20,000 a year in additional income.
Wow, that's huge, right? Like you can't
Crazy.
argue
Yeah.
with that. The other thing that we touched on kind of when you did the radio version, but I think it makes sense to cover again is you literally have a competitor or like in a certain vertical, and then
Yeah.
kind of like how you guys are different. And I think
Yeah.
that's pretty ballsy to do, right? I think a lot of people wouldn't list that, but what was the rationale behind actually doing that?
So, so I've talked to a lot of customers, as I mentioned, but a lot of people will say, they're just starting out, or maybe they're looking for a platform, and they'll say, so like, how do you differ from X?
Sure.
And I was getting that question over and over and over and over again. So I decided really just to write some copy around it, put a sort of a landing page together, and say, this is why we're different. This is why you should choose us over them, or like, even just kind of listing the differences. So, X takes 10% transaction fees, we don't, sort of thing. So there's that side of thing where I was just making my life a little bit easier.
Sure.
The other side of the thing is that basically every competitor that we have is in one specific vertical. So we don't really have a direct competitor in terms of a digital storefront, and this lets us tell our story really well. So maybe you're looking to compare us to X, but maybe you haven't thought about why you might want to eventually sell downloads. You might want to sell memberships, and it gives us this ability to tell the full story.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think you probably also get some kind of other traffic just from people kind of Googling around when they're like,
Yeah.
Company X alternatives, right? Because
Yeah.
I think you mentioned it last time. They're usually not happy if they're kind of an alternate to
Yeah.
what they're currently using.
Yeah, exactly. So you do pick people up in the sort of the life cycle of like, I've been using X for 6 months,
Sure.
Their support is terrible. They take all the transaction fees, what can you do for me? So we definitely get a lot of people that come through that channel as well.
Sure. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. So I want to kind of maybe dive a little bit deeper into Podia. You covered it pretty good, but if I'm a creator, how do I kind of, use the platform? I get all my content, my courses, I'm running email campaigns, but like, how do I kind of just like keep it current and fresh and kind of my, patrons engaged?
Yep. So we've written a lot of content around this. So if people are looking to learn more, if you go to podia.com, podia.com, you find our resources at the top. There's a bunch of guides into like how to keep your content fresh, how to create content, how to sell content, et cetera. But basically how most people work, they kind of fall into these two groups. So you've got the person that wants to create content, say once a year, twice a year, and then you've got the person that wants to create content monthly.
Sure.
So they're really different types of people, but the same sort of thing exists, that you go into Podia, you create an account. So say you want to sell an online course, you log into your dashboard, you add a new product, you add an online course, you put it up for sale. You've now got a sales page, either on your own custom domain or on our domain, and you sell it directly to your audience. So then say you buy my course for $99. You're now a customer of mine. You log into your dashboard, you see your course, but then you also see all the other content that that I'm selling. So you see, if I create a new digital download, if you see if I have a new membership plan, and it allows you to, as a customer of mine, to constantly be engaged, constantly see new things I'm creating, and easily kind of, again, like cross sell and buy more stuff.
Sure. No, I think that's really great. And I think that's kind of key, right? Because I think some people, it's hard to constantly create content, right? So having those resources as well is super useful. The one thing I do want to cover as well is you guys are basically a remote team. And I've had people on the show that say, that's a terrible idea. I do it, don't do it. But you're one of the few people I've met that I think in a lot of cases would say that kind of the only way to run the business. And so how do you guys, make it kind of work?
Sure. Yeah. So, remote has a lot of advantages, and I think it's becoming more and more popular
Sure.
these days. You've got huge companies like WordPress, GitHub, that are fully remote now. Basecamp kind of was the first big, well-known company to do it. But there's a lot of advantages. So we're 8 people.
Okay.
We're spread across like Ireland, Canada, parts of the United States as well. But it makes it really easy to hire great people because you don't really have to look. So I'm in New York City, but I don't have to just look for designers or just look for developers in New York City. I can literally work with anyone in the entire world. So it's a huge advantage in terms of recruiting. You can really get the best people for the role.
Sure.
Also, the communication tools these days are just amazing. You've got Zoom, you've got Slack, Trello. There's just a lot of things that makes it a lot easier than it once was, say, 5 or 10 years ago. And then there's just the relaxation of being able to work in a comfortable environment, at home or at a coffee shop or at a co-working space, and not feeling that social pressure of having to go to the office from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, not being able to leave your desk if you're, say, not feeling super well, or like maybe you're just not being motivated right now and you just want to go for, a walk in the park. And for a remote company, it's really easy to take time out of your day to do that sort of thing.
Sure. And I also think too, just some people aren't morning people or they're more night people. And so, sometimes just being able to do different tasks at different times of the day when you're feeling the most kind of creative or whatnot. And I think we touched on this kind of in the radio version about, especially in kind of tech, it's like, as from the design side, it's like, well, you could see what I've been working on. And even from the development side, it's like, well, I've been coding, right? Like you can clearly see within like a week or two, whether I've been actually doing something, right, or not. Yeah. And so it's way more kind of tangible that I think people kind of get a bit scared of sometimes when they say, well, we don't let anybody work remote, but it's like, well, yeah, but I think people are way more productive. And just because they're sitting in front of a computer looking like they're busy doesn't mean they're always working on something, right? Like,
yeah, totally. It's actually super draining. I mean, we've all been in that situation where we've just been at our computer and we're not feeling productive, but we feel like we have to be there. And it'll actually completely kill the rest of your day. Whereas if you could just take an hour, half hour, whatever, go get a coffee, walk around the block, etc., come back to your desk and you're going to feel completely refreshed. But in an office environment, that's typically like frowned upon because people are like, where's Spencer going?
Yeah. No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say another huge advantage too is just being able to work with people from all different parts of the world. So working from people in Ireland, working from people in like down south in the US and Northwest Canada, you get all these different perspectives. And I think obviously everyone knows this, but for the internet, anyone can use your product. And so, you have customers from all over the world, and not just having, say, employees in one city or one town really gives you that worldly perspective, and really helps you kind of build a better product.
Sure. So, but you touched on something that's kind of interesting. Do you have then, your support kind of technically 24/7 just because you have people in different parts of the world and time zones?
Yeah. So we try to do that.
Okay.
We're still only 8 people, so we don't have, say, live chat at 4 a.m.
Right.
But we do have live chat during the entire day, and then we do have email support as close to 24/7 as feasible.
Sure.
We have a lot of customers that are not outside or that are outside the United States, and for those people, like, just to be able to talk to people at different time zones is really like a great benefit for them, because like, oh my God, you care about me. Like I'm in England, and I know most United States companies aren't going to be like there to support me, but you're there because like you've got someone in Ireland who can answer my email at 4 a.m. And that's really great for them.
Yeah, I think that is one thing that sets a lot of kind of startups apart is the actual support, right? Because I think living in North America, we take for granted, like, well, I can probably, fit in an email or a call. But people in other parts of the world, you're right, like they're like, well, I gotta, it's late in the evening or it's super early in the morning for me to actually try to get a hold of somebody in kind of North America. So I think that's really valuable.
It's frustrating.
Yeah.
Because imagine, like, I think about this a lot because we have so many customers in Europe. Like, imagine, it's 2 p.m. in Italy, and you've got a question, it's burning question, but in the U.S., like that's 9 a.m. or if you're on the West Coast, that's like 6 a.m. So you might just be getting into work, and that person needs help now. So yeah, it's super important to just kind of support everyone.
No, I think that's really good advice. We're kind of coming to the end of the show, but I really want to kind of close Is there any other kind of advice you'd give somebody, because you've bootstrapped companies, you've raised raised money? What do you recommend to people?
So for entrepreneurs, I've been saying the same thing for say like 3 or 4 years now.
Sure.
The number one piece of advice I give people is just really to be persistent. And that can mean a lot of different things, but really for me, it means to not give up. I think a lot of times as an entrepreneur, you're 6 months in or even 3 months in or a year in, and you're just like, this is not going anywhere. Like, I'm just going to shut this thing down. I only have a couple of customers, et cetera. But the people that are the most successful, and you see this from like, even from people like Airbnb and Dropbox and stuff like that, it takes a long time.
Sure.
It's not something that you can really just spin up overnight and just become immediately successful. It can take 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Actually, Shopify is famous for this. I think for 4 years, they had like 0 customers. And then all of a sudden it started to just like explode. So persistence is the biggest thing. And that doesn't mean like beat your head against the wall. You got to be constantly trying new things, but just don't give up, because I think so many people give up just way, way, way too early.
Spencer, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day, man.
Definitely. Take care.
Okay, bye.